Can you believe that a Coke can and a plastic cup helped solve a 30-year-old sexual assault and murder case? Yes, a Coke can did. And this case is truly unique because it not only ended the lively life of an 18-year-old college student, Maddie Stack, but also took 30 years for her to get justice. Meanwhile, Maddie's culprit slipped right under the noses of major police agencies. Surprisingly, this crime took place in a part of the world where no one would have expected it. A small community where everyone knew each other. A town in Washington with a population of just 300 to 350, where everyone knew everyone else. People felt so safe that they didn't even lock their doors. But everything was about to change on November 24th, 1989. 18-year-old Maddie usually went jogging with her mother, but that day she went alone with her German Shepherd, Kira, to jog along the Nooksack River. She had no idea that it would be her last jog. A few hours later, only her dog, Kira, returned home. Even though there were only 10 to 12 houses along that route, a few people saw Kira returning home alone, even her brother Lee, who was at the Andersons' house halfway down the route. Maddie had been missing for 24 hours, and the whole town of Acme began searching for her, but no clue was found. As the search entered its second day, people were still hoping that 18-year-old Amanda Stack, who had disappeared the day before, would be found. 3 days later, Maddie's dead body was found 6 miles from her home, in the Nooksack River. Her body had no clothes on, and everyone in the community hoped nothing horrible had happened to her. Only her autopsy report could reveal the truth. The next day, the report arrived. The cause of death was asphyxia by drowning, meaning she had died by suffocation due to drowning. However, there were no signs of struggle at the place where Maddie's body was found. Moreover, the water there wasn't even deep, plus Maddie was a good swimmer. So it was clear that she hadn't drowned. But the medical examination revealed something else: head injury and sexual assault. It seemed someone had struck Maddie on the head forcefully and violated her. The entire town was in shock. Everyone had just one question on their mind. Who could have done this to Maddie? Was the killer among them, or had someone from outside come and done this? And was he now looking for his next target? Somewhere, the killer was still roaming free. Please watch this case till the end, because it not only has numerous twists and turns like in a movie, but it also offers a lesson that we all should remember for life. Welcome to the show, and you are watching the case of Maddie Stack. By 1986, DNA testing had started being used in the US for crime cases, making it crucial to find the killer's DNA in this case. Fortunately, the police found an unidentified DNA sample from Maddie's body. Music. They created a sketch that could be a major breakthrough. The police intensified their investigation, followed every lead, recorded statements from all witnesses, and finally, a name surfaced: David Such. David Such, a drifter, was seen in the same area that day. A drifter is a vagabond, someone with a less than good reputation in society. But his DNA didn't match the unidentified DNA at the crime scene, and the police had to rule David Such out, putting all their efforts to waste. 20 years passed, 2 detectives changed, yet the crime remained unsolved. But the police didn't give up. In 2009, the case was transferred to Detective Kevin Bowie, who started collecting DNA samples from all the men who lived in Acme in 1989. 4 years passed, but not a single sample matched. The police department was frustrated. Maddie's family was exhausted from waiting for justice, and the town of Acme was losing hope. Then, a miracle happened. 2 ladies, Heather and Marilee, bumped into each other at a water park. Both had studied with Maddie in the same college. In conversation, Maddie's name came up, and they both immediately thought of the same person whom they had always suspected of being Maddie's killer, Tim Bass, who had attended the same college. But why did they name Tim Bass? Was Tim really the culprit? And if they had suspected him all these years, why had they kept quiet for so long? To answer these questions, let's go back to Maddie's college days. In college, Heather and Marilee had disturbing experiences with Tim. On a school trip, Tim had tried to physically molest Heather, and he had also gone to Marilee's house late at night, forcing her to have a physical relationship with him. Music. Imagine a college student, one of their own, harassing and molesting them like this. He would repeatedly pressure them to have a physical relationship with him. Both of them had endured mental trauma and were so frightened that they kept it all hidden. But now, years later, Heather and Marilee realized that they had to speak up to get Maddie justice. So, they finally gathered the courage to contact the police. They shared their reasons for suspecting Tim Bass, and also spoke about their disturbing experiences with him. This was a major lead that the police received after 25 years. Tim's house was near Maddie's, and both families had a good relationship. Tim's younger brother Tom was Maddie's friend. Surprisingly, if Tim was the real culprit, why didn't his DNA match the unknown male DNA? The reason was carelessness in the investigation at that time. The police had never collected DNA samples from Tim or his family because the two families were close, and no one suspected them. This was the biggest mistake by the police department. Whether Tim was the culprit or not could only be determined by his DNA. So the police, without further delay, went to meet Tim at his house. For the past 25 years, Tim had been living peacefully in Everson, 30 kilometers from Acme, with his wife and 3 children working as a delivery truck driver at a bakery. The police met Tim, explained the case, and asked for his saliva sample, but Tim flatly refused to provide it. This only deepened the police's suspicion, and they decided to investigate Tim's background. First, they met Tim's brother, Tom Bass. Tom told the police that Tim had always been antisocial and became even more aggressive after his breakup in college. After that breakup, Tim harbored a strange hatred toward all women, as if he internally despised girls and women. 6 weeks after Maddie's death, Tim married Gina Malone from his college. Just think for a second. What kind of life would a woman who married a man like that have? When the police met Tim's wife, Gina, the revelations she made were quite horrifying. Tom was a controlling and emotionally abusive partner who treated his wife like a servant. Gina couldn't leave him even if she wanted to, because Tom had threatened that if she tried, he would lie and get custody of all 3 children. She had been enduring this for 30 years. For Gina, marriage was like a prison. After all these revelations, Tom became the prime suspect in the eyes of the police. But they still needed strong evidence to prove him guilty. The police desperately needed his DNA sample. They formed a team and followed him all night, hoping he would discard an item that could contain his saliva. But all their attempts led to failure. Either it was pure coincidence, or Tom was exceptionally cunning. But as the saying goes, when all doors are closed, somewhere, a door opens. And that new door was Tom's boss, Kim Wagner. The police approached Kim and explained everything to her. Kim also hadn't had a good experience with Tom. She had noticed his disrespectful behavior toward women. So without any hesitation, she agreed to help the police. Kim began keeping a close eye on Tom, hoping for an opportunity to obtain his DNA sample. Months passed, and finally, the day came. Tom used a Coke can and a plastic cup and threw them in the trash. Kim seized the opportunity, discreetly retrieved them, and handed them over to the police. After some time, the test results arrived, confirming that the unknown DNA found at the crime scene was Tom's. On December 17th, 2007, the police arrested Tom on charges of kidnapping, sexual assault, and the murder of Mandy. The case was personal for everyone involved. A prime example being Prosecutor Dave, who came out of retirement to represent Mandy's case without charging any fees. But the case wasn't over yet. During the trial, Tom made a statement about Mandy that shocked everyone. He claimed he and Mandy had a secret affair and had physical relations that day, which is why his DNA was found on her body. This was an odd and disturbing statement. The prosecutor argued there was no connection between Mandy and Tom. They never spoke, were not in the same class, and in fact, Tom was 4 years senior to her. No one had ever seen Mandy and Tom together at any place. Tom's claim crossed all limits of disgrace. His statement was short-lived because his own family testified against him to reveal the truth. Tom's wife, Gina, told the court she had heard Tom telling his mother to put all the blame on his father, who had passed away 10 years ago. But Tom's mother outright refused to do so. This man, who had asked his mother to blame his father in a case involving a girl's sexual assault, showed his true colors. Tom's brother, Tom Jr., also testified, explaining how Tom pressured him to state in court that Mandy had a poor character and had a physical relationship with him to nullify the angle of sexual assault. Tom stooped to every possible low in his defense. After a 30-year wait, a 2-week trial, and 5 hours of deliberations, the verdict finally arrived. Tom was sentenced to 27 years in prison on charges of kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder.